Well, hello fellow team ropers, I'm Coleman Proctor here to answer that one important question we all have. How do we keep a practice steer staying strong without getting too full? Well, to help me answer that, Mr. Glenn Waters, Dr. N.T. Cosby. Let's talk a little bit nutrition specifically for a roping steer.
Right. So Coleman, I think the first thing we need to do when we bring the fresh cattle in is get them started with a safe feed that's going to keep them healthy, and that would be the Purina Precon. I know it's a 50-year-old product. I know these steers have some age on them, but what we're really trying to do is get the rumen healthy. So that's the first step. Get them eating, get them ruminating, and so that would be the first step. And then, Glenn, I think one thing we're always going to recommend would be one of these Avela-4 tubs.
You bet, Dr. Cosby. The Avela-4 mineral tub is a cooked molasses-based mineral tub. It has a high level of really highly available trace minerals. And Coleman, the importance of that is once you get these calves in and get that rumen working, like NT stated, then we got to keep them to where they can handle any type of stress. We can build up their immunity so that they can stay healthy, so that the ropers can do what they want to do with them.
Absolutely. So you talk a little bit there about fresh steers. Let's talk about trying to make those old steers last a little longer. Do nutritional needs change as fresh steers versus an older steer?
Yeah, absolutely. Once we get them past that starting and stress period, at that point, the base of a program needs to be good quality hay, something that's palatable, and then we just need to supplement a little bit of energy, but it has to be the right kind of energy where it's not a lot of starch and corn that's going to affect them and have them going on and off feed. So what we would suggest, and you can get all of these products at any Purina dealer pretty much across the country, would be our Stocker Grower 14. So a pelleted product, 14% protein, well balanced trace mineral package as well. So that's what we're going to recommend at somewhere around maybe a half up to 1.5% of body weight, depending on the calves.
And as always, as people have questions, because I know a lot of things change when we talk about regions. You know, my part of the world, maybe it's been a little drier than up here in the beautiful part of Missouri where it's gotten a lot more grass. So, as nutritional needs will change from region to region, can we always reach out to our local Purina dealers?
Local Purina dealer is the first point of contact, Coleman, and that can either be somebody that any of our roper friends out there know in town. You can always go to purinamills.com and use your dealer locator to identify your local Purina dealer. And like Dr. Cosby said, the Precon Complete, the Avela-4 cooked mineral tubs, and the Stocker Grower 14 pellets are very consistent products. They're available at almost every Purina dealer.
So Dr. Cosby, there are a lot of factors when we start trying to put a nutritional program together for, like, this specific type of cow. Let's talk just a little bit. How much does forage quality play into that?
I think forage quality is the base of any ruminant program, whether we're going to rope them or whether we're getting calves out of them, right? So good forage quality is important. I think one of the things that can happen is sometimes, Coleman, we think, man, this hay over here is really good buy, and I go buy it, but the calves don't want to eat it very well. Or the other thing you can see, you've probably seen this, is they get kind of a big old hay belly on them, right?
Absolutely.
So what do your guys do when that happens?
That's one of the things, like, when in the winter time you go to cutting them off of hay, if you're going to rope, you maybe start pulling them off the hay a day or two early because they get too sluggish, they get too wore out too fast, it seems.
And that affects their energy because you pulled them off the hay, right? So one thing that can happen when cattle get that hay belly is there's probably a shortage of ruminally available nitrogen. What I'm saying here is protein. So those bugs in the rumen aren't doing a very good job of being able to ferment that fiber because it's not as good a quality. So what we may do is need to increase the protein a little bit in the diet. So maybe instead of a 14% pellet, we may need to go to a 20, but feed a little bit less of it. And so we're getting more protein in there, and that'll help those bugs digest that fiber, and it'll take that hay belly down. So maybe you don't have to take them off feed quite as much, and it'll keep their energy up for them.
Wow, one thing about Purina, it's like a good Lego set. There's always a piece that makes it work, isn't there? Yeah. Well, Mr. Waters, let's talk a little bit about what can we do to help their horn growth, their skeletal development, because we got to keep these steers lasting for a long time for us. Is there something we can put out year-round?
There is, Coleman, and so the recommendation that we make on receiving these roping calves is to use this Wind and Rain all-season Avela-4 mineral tub. And it's really important at that receiving time for building up immunity and disease response and a tolerance to stress. But probably a more important role long term is to leave it out the entire time that you have the calves in your possession and you're working with them to rope and wanting to run them, because it does have trace minerals that specifically address skeletal development, structure of bone, quality and hardness of hoof and of horn. all those things that are important to keeping that calf in condition, keeping that calf where he's able to go and able to withstand and provide endurance. The Availafor mineral tub helps with that, and they'll eat it very readily. The key thing is for the owner of the animals to make sure we keep it out to them.
Well, anything that you can put out and leave out's a great thing. Let's talk just a little bit, Dr. Cosby. So not only like as a cow-calf man myself, but even in my roping herd, mineral plays a huge part of longevity. It
does, absolutely. You know, we talked about energy and having these cattle to where they have enough energy for several runs, and mineral is a role in that, specifically phosphorus. So the mineral tub that Glenn mentioned, good source of phosphorus, that's going to help with energy utilization. The vitamin A, it is extremely important for muscle development, of course sight and all of those type of things we think about, but it's not just the big minerals. We think about calcium, phosphorus, which are important for bone development, but also the trace minerals Glenn mentioned in terms of hoof health and ligament development and some of those things to keep the cattle sound. But it's a complete package. Fortunate part is you can buy it all in that tub and just keep it out available to them all the time.
You know, you think about, you know, your local team roper that maybe has 10 head, you know, so the upfront cost maybe isn't quite as much. Let's talk just a little bit about price point. You know, let's say you're a producer that has 300 head of steers, you know, and a typical producer getting $15 in a first round run, that steer he's going to have to go 40 to 50 times in the first round before he ever really pays himself back. So could putting a little bit of money up front help kind of sustain that animal and maybe make us money on the back end?
The thought process on the recommendation we make for these type of steers, Coleman, is invest in them on the front end to get them prepared, build the foundation, get them ready to go, and then we reap the benefit of that investment as we start going into deeper and more runs and get more utilization out of them. And it's not just a specific period in time that we're feeding for them over a period of time as well. And that's why we start with the pre-con complete. We get them started right. The Availafor tub stays with them all the way through to get that foundation and maintain it. And then some of the things Dr. Cosby's talked about with the 14-16% grower pellets helps keep the engine running until you're done with them.
Now, does the RX3 that comes in pre-con, how big of a role will that play on a stressed animal like a rope and steer?
Yeah, the RX3, what that is, it's a proprietary blend that Purina's put in all of our starter feeds that is a prebiotics, probiotics, plant extracts, and it really is all about getting that rumen healthy, and we've talked about that quite a bit, right? Getting them started, getting them ruminating. Forage is the base of a good program for these steers, and so the RX3 is going to help culture the appropriate bugs in the rumen so that again, they can ferment that forage, digest that forage, have the long-lasting energy to make those several runs they need to.
You know, Mr. Waters, you touched on it a while ago, and I think team ropers, we're all visual people, but you'd made a comment about not feeding at just one specific time, but more all the time for longevity and having a product when you're done. Is that?
Well, I think that's important, and of course Dr. Cosby's laid out a program here, and that's exactly what it is, Coleman, is a program, because if you just grab one piece of it, if you just grab the Availafor mineral tub, it helps. If you just grab the pre-con complete to get them started, it helps. But they all work together as part of a total solution and a total program. And if we leave one or two pieces out, then we miss those and we don't get the outcome on the backside that we really are hoping for. So cutting those corners sometimes really hurts us on the backside. And so the program is designed to be implemented as a program with a specific desired outcome to be achieved.
You know, one thing that when I've walked into my local feed store, immediately whenever the price is almost the same for 12% versus 14 versus 16%, protein doesn't always mean energy. Is that right?
That is exactly right, Coleman. They are separate, and so a 14 is a good baseline product. It's going to fit most hay qualities, and really what we're after on these roping steers is just as you identify and know very well, have enough energy without getting them too much to where they get a little lazy on you, right?
Absolutely.
So that's going to be somewhere around about 1% of body weight of that product.
Because honestly, you know, they can look a lot like me and be a little bit where you think they're real athletic, but be a little bit lazy. And let's talk just a little bit about a price point. You know, I think one thing is team ropers, we're cheap. You know, we don't want to have to put the extra dough out there when we don't have to. But you can actually make these steers sustain and last longer, especially when they're costing as much as they do today. by just putting a little bit more money up front. Is that right?
You can, Coleman. And so the Pre-Con Complete is not the cheapest per ton or per bag weaning ration, but it's over 50 years old. It's time tested. It's proven, so we know what the results are. There's no guesswork. And if we invest in a little bit of better feed to get that immunity and that stress tolerance built up on the front end, then the program that Dr. Cosby's laid out to take them through the rest of the time that you work with them will work. It'll work well, and you can take those feed savings there and invest it in your animals, in your equipment, in your trailer, all those things that are important to chasing animals around the country.
Well, absolutely. Well, Team Ropers, you heard it here first. A little bit more money maybe up on the front end, going to make your product last a lot longer. Check out your local dealers' website. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.